Hi, my name is Ollie and welcome to the Hardwood Journals. Today we're down our lower yard and I'll be talking you through the stacking process of hardwood. Stacking wood is a really important process just because wood will move as it dries. In the drying process, the cells of the wood are releasing its moisture, and as they're releasing that moisture, it is shrinking. But being stacked in an outside environment, it's changing of humidity that's going to come into it. So right now it's winter, so there's a lot more moisture in the air. So this cut timber is still going to soak up some moisture and swell a little bit, and then come spring and summer, will shrink again. But the hope is through the months, it's going to lose more than it's going to gain. But through that process of losing that moisture, it's going to shrink and warp. And you see in this piece here, this is quite extreme, but I've seen wood do some really crazy stuff in the drying process. It's not only cut, but it's also warped that way as well. So it's essentially a Pringle. I've seen pieces completely twist. Some of this movement is also partly from the tension that the tree is holding as it was growing. So some tree species basically twist as they grow. You've got other trees, if they're growing on a hillside, then they're going to grow kind of like that and hold more tension on one side than the other to keep it upright. That tension is being held nicely in that log. The moment we cut it on the mill, you're relieving that. And so you'll get boards that will completely cut like a banana. You'll get some boards that will twist like that, which all things take into account in the milling process, but it's not what we're talking about today. In the stacking, it's important to get it flat to try and help with that movement that's going to come across. One form of stacking are boules. This is where you have your cut log and you restack it in the same form that the log was originally in. There's pros and cons to boules. I mean, pro, looks cool, I will say. It's what you immediately go to because it also keeps that log together. Some carpenters might have projects where they want to have the same color grain going through the piece, and so you'll need the timber from the same log all the way through. But the thing is, I find there's quite a few issues with them. And that is, one, stacking, as you can see here, because no log is the same height, it's hard to really stack them together without trying to lose a lot of timber in cutting off, one, a big butt. So you want a nice big flat surface for the base of it. Otherwise, I don't know how many boules I've had to restack because I picked them up and they've just rolled over. And so you're losing quite a bit of timber from that. But then also, to get it stacked level with other boules, you might then lose quite a bit on the top as well. But my main issue with them is it won't always keep the boards flat. So as I mentioned, as a tree grows, it might hold quite a bit of tension in it. It might twist, it might bend, or if there's a particularly large branch in that tree, then where that's going to dry in the board form, there's all sorts of tension being held there. And in restacking the boards into its log form, you're replacing the knot over itself. So if the board below wants to push up, then the board above wants to push up as well. It's got the same tension going through. So it's not keeping it flat. As the stickers that are lining up within the stacks, really important job. Not only are they keeping this space even throughout the board, so you've got a nice airflow going through, drying it out, but keeping in line, they're also keeping the tension all the way through. And what I mean by that is, like I said, there's a knot here, and it's going to push up. It's pushing directly on top of this board. That with the sticker above that is pushing directly above that board. So it's keeping that weight in that one place to keep it pinned down and flat. Whereas if you do have that knot or a twist in a log, the stickers aren't really going to do anything because each board above itself is doing the same thing. And the same can be said even with when the board is drying widthwise the rings want to flatten out. So that's where you get your cupping. And through that, these boards have all got the same ring going this way, and below the center of the log, the ring's going the same way below. So this half is going to go like, oh wait, trying to think about this, like that. And this half is going to go like that. That's why I'm not a big fan of boules. But I do think they have their place. Although stacking like this is really nice and neat, there are some disadvantages. Just say if you're not stacking or milling timber that is nice and square and easy to stack into a square pack, and you're milling a nice big log that you can't quite fit side by side to get a nice square 1.2, however wide your stack is, you occasionally have to make that sacrifice of cutting boards down to fill in spaces. You can see here we've got a few offcuts in here with some other stickers just to keep that block filled. Otherwise these boards could start to sag. It's hard to know how to stack like this occasionally. I mean, we're lucky enough that we can use these smaller pieces down at the boardroom, down at our shop, where we sell offcuts or turning blanks or chopping boards. But if you have got OCD, I will say these packs can be a fun challenge as well, trying to fit them together like a jigsaw. Because you might be processing these boards as they come out going, well, there's a crack there, so we're going to cut that down anyway. Or there's a large notch, we'll cut that there to get into a nice square pack. One way you can keep those packs nice and square, you see here, I've cut a wide log. At the same time, I've been milling a quite narrow log and stacked them side by side in order to get that width coverage. But also keeping the species together as well. Because like I said with the boules, a pro there is you're keeping that grain and colour together in that one pack. In this pack, it's one of the first square packs I did. You can see I've kept these logs roughly together. I milled them nearly 600 wide. They have got a bit of a square edge on them. And done top and tail next to each other. So I'm keeping this log together, and I've spaced it out with something slightly thicker, the offcuts, and go on to the next log, just to keep that grain and colour together, and also where these logs were from, their locations. I still managed to make a nice square pack. So your timber will be sat air drying for a year for every inch thickness that timber's at. So these packs here are mostly ash, about 2-inch thick, so they're going to be sat here for a good 2 years. So the base that you're going to be sat on, the kind of rule of thumb is you have it about 400 mil off of the ground. That is because when it rains, droplets hit the ground and splash back up. So it's keeping the bottom boards off the ground as well, just to keep them in good condition. So you want to stack on something that's nice and flat. It's really important. If you're stacking on unlevel ground, say it's a dip or a twist, that will accentuate through the whole pack. And you'll get many flat level boards out of that that's very usable. Because something to keep in mind, although after all the air drying and kilning, you can surface, you can plane to get nice flat level, you'll lose a lot of material. So if you're keeping these packs nice and flat all the way through the drying process, you hopefully get nice flat boards out of that and get a lot more usable material. Again, that's why we're on hardcore here, which I've leveled out. Then got a few bearers. It's not as high as I'd like it to be, nor is it very in line with the stickers and the bearers. But this is nice and true and flat with good sticker spacing, keeping in line. Personally, I prefer to have a few more bearers in here because boards can sag as well. I mean, you'll be amazed at just how much timber can move and droop and twist and all these defects that can come out that you don't want in your end product. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Hardwood Journals. If you do have any other questions, then please do leave them in the comment section below.